Hello, everyone. I'm a raging papist. Thanks again for joining me. I wanted to do another follow-up story to multiculturalism and my experiences with it in recent time. The story that I wrote for Millennial Woes, totally true, was took place a couple years ago now, and once again I find myself in a place where I am endlessly enriched, and I have vibrancy everywhere, and it's difficult to maintain focus and maintain drive and ambition as you have to constantly work your way through this. This is not a written story, so I'm just going to be talking for this one, so it's not going to be nearly as eloquent or thoughtful, perhaps, but maybe some of you guys can glean something from it. If you like it, and go ahead and comment or whatever. Uh, as some of you may know, I'm currently a law student, and I am in Phoenix, Arizona, but the law school that I go to is a progressive institution. And what I mean by a progressive institution is they want to extol the virtues and the values of progressivism. So they pride themselves on egalitarianism, diversity, it's all of our strength, there's no weakness here. Look at how the law is enriched when we have all these different points of views and perspectives, and at the same time completely disowning any conservative or right-leaning viewpoint. Of course, they'll tell you, they'll tell you that they want a conservative mindset, and because we want to have that balance for some reason. But that's it's kind of a sham. Um, and it's a progressive mindset because of all the, not just the views of the students, obviously, who are all progressive people, but it's also the values of the teachers and the proctors and what they demonstrate. So, they want to test you on your emotional intelligence and being able to relate and diffuse situations. Some of that is good. Some of that is necessary as an attorney, as a mediator, as all these things. Some of that is good information. But a lot of it is also meant to just coddle people. And one of the ways I knew I was in a bad situation was when I had to do professor evaluations. And one of the questions for the evaluation was, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate and they just came out and said it, how would you rate the progressive nature of your professor? 1 to 10. 10 being the best, as in they are telling you that you should be going off to serve, the GLBT, diverse, non-white institutions, liberal think tanks, leftist things such as that nature. I shouldn't say leftist think tanks. There are no leftist think tanks. Only the right has those, and they're useless. But as you can see, being a person who is in the right, then when you go there, you're in an absolutely hostile environment. I can't afford to let people know how far right I am. It's just unwise to do so. You don't want your professors finding that out. You don't want your fellow students finding that out. And it's really funny. My soul spoke to me one day as I went into class over the summer, and there was an Arab gentleman sitting in the back of the room, and something told me immediately. I had never seen the guy before. I'd never spoken to him, didn't hear about him before, but something told me to stay away. He is going to do you harm. You're not going to hit it off. This is not going to be a good experience. And I've learned to trust that little voice inside myself over the years. It very rarely steers me wrong, whether that's a connection to the soul, whether it's just an internal, biological defense mechanism, whatever it is, I've learned to trust it. So I sit in the back of class, and, class after class goes by, the semester's wearing on, and we're in election season. This was, Donald Trump had already become, I believe he had already become the nominee, and I wind up getting into a political discussion with this gentleman. And it doesn't go well. And I was pulled into it by accident because there was a Marine in the class, and he and I had spoken about the glories of the Trumpenfuhrer and all that. And he gets into an argument with the Arab, and the Arab he is actually anti-white. white culture specifically infuriates him. It's all racism. Uh, you know, only white people can be racist. I mean, he actually believes all these things. And I'm keeping my mouth shut until the Marine says, "Oh, I was talking to Papist behind you back there, and he says this." And the guy brings me into the situation because he wants backup because the Arab is beating him up. And I'm like, oh, shit. So the guy turns around and faces me, and he asks me, "Why do you support the KKK?" And off of that, I go ahead and trigger him, and I just say, uh, what KKK? Why not support the KKK? What have they done since the 80s? They're a dead organization. They're defunct. They're just a scarecrow for you to beat up on. And I trigger the guy, and he freaks out, and then he promptly loses the debate. It carries on for a little bit, but he just can't believe I'm saying these things. He can't believe I'm saying these things. And so then he leaves. And I knew there was something wrong. And I knew I should have kept my mouth shut, but it was, a guy will find himself thrust into these situations. Lo and behold, 2 class periods later, the Marine had, for whatever reason, didn't go to class that day. And as the class is getting ready to depart, it's at the end there, the Arab gentleman raises his hand and tells the teacher, "Professor, I was speaking with Papist here and some other people, and I'm just really surprised at the level of racism that we see nowadays. And how should we be, as an organization, how should we be trying to combat this?" And the professor, thank God, she looks at him, she looks at me, and then she just says, it's like, "Well, people, we have to be respectful of others' opinions, and there's nothing else you can do about it." And then the Arab says, "But I've spoken to other teachers now. I've spoken to the administration about this. Some of the points they raised were so troubling to me. I spoke with other students in other classes and all these things." And again, she calmed him down and just said, I don't care what any other people say. You have to acknowledge their differing opinions." And he was shut down, thankfully. Now, what does that tell you? Was he shut down? Is that a good thing? Yes, of course. I was saved. I was spared. But apparently, he, in the 4 days since the argument we had, he had gone to the administration to try and get me in trouble. He had gone to other teachers to try and get me in trouble. Tried to spread a negative reputation about me and my racism because I wouldn't denounce the KKK. These are common occurrences that, as you go up in academia, a student, you have to be cognizant of. These are the things that can get you in trouble. And we learn that you have to be careful with who you speak to. And I knew I should never speak to this man. It was a trap, but it's just one of those things where you have to be careful, because sooner or later there will be a time when I am no longer in law school. God willing, I'm an attorney somewhere, and I can actually use my time and talent and my words to help people. Then I no longer need to mask myself. I don't need to go running to YouTube to share with all the people that hear the story just how, this does not need to be my retreat. My retreat does not need to be you guys. I can actually live by what I say. But until then, we can't. Because these people will destroy you. And this isn't even the story that I was thinking of. I'll go ahead and give the story that was originally. So over the same summer, in this same class, actually, there is a wonderful, beautiful young girl. And I start studying with her. She's very friendly, very, very smart. And we kind of came up with the pact that we're gonna in law school, you're in a competition with everybody, right? You're graded on a curve. Somebody has to fail. And the highest grade gets the A, and everybody goes down from there. So it is competition, right? It's not pleasant, but it is what it is. So this girl and I, we decide, let's crush everybody else. So we'll study together. We'll share our notes. We'll do all these things. We'll team up. Um, she's an attractive young woman, and she is of Pakistani descent. And as I come to get to know her, um, I find out she is Muslim. She's a Sunni. I'm Catholic. And one of the reasons I've come to despise multiculturalism is what it does to people. Uh, I know, just from what I've told you right there, I know that she is not a match for me. I am a white Western Catholic man. She is a Pakistani Muslim woman. And I'm just, it's unfortunate that because of multiculturalism, we have been thrusted into a position where we both need to be together. Uh, I mean, there's very few white women, frankly, at my school. There's very few white people. It's the school has gone out of its way to make sure that there are no dominant groups. And so it is difficult to find and be around people that are like-minded. Nobody at the school I've found, maybe one person shares remotely my politics, but even then we don't talk about it because you just can't risk it. But it's funny because as time goes by and I'm with this woman, um, we're hitting it off. Everything is really, really good. We're becoming good friends. All of a sudden, all the things that I start to care about in my life, my faith, my race, my country, they start to mean less and less to me, because a guy will start fantasizing. He will start saying, well, maybe ultimately we could make it work, right? I mean, yes, of course, in my heart, I'm all these things, and that'll never change. But for the sake of love, for the sake of happiness, don't I deserve to be happy? Don't I deserve all these things? And the answer is, of course you do. So maybe what's wrong? I don't believe in miscegenation. I don't believe in all these things. But I'm just one more guy at the end of the day. I want to be happy. Why not? And my relationship is getting better and better. And it's funny. I told my mother one night that I'm starting to have feelings for this girl that I'm studying with, and she just says, "Papist, don't you dare fall in love with her." And I was taken away. She just says, don't do it. You'll kill yourself if you do this. And I told my mom that it's actually difficult for me not to, simply because this woman is the first woman that I've seen in years that likes to be a woman. When a woman embraces her femininity, she's not a whore, and she's not a prude. She's not a nun. I'm not denigrating nuns, obviously, but she's not a prude and she's not a whore. She's just feminine. She likes being female. She's comfortable with that role. Somewhat submissive, somewhat temperate, but she can maneuver the situation as she needs to be around masculinity. And when a woman embraces that, it's a beautiful thing. And naturally, because of her Muslim faith, I mean, she covers herself from head to toe. She doesn't wear any headscarf or anything like that. Yes, she drinks alcohol. She's just a normal girl that embodies a lot of the views that we used to have as traditional femininity, things that we associate with women. And it had been so long since I'd seen that in a white or Western woman that I was ready to hop at that chance. Now, it's really funny. Again, I don't know if this is God. Yahweh is tricky because we don't know how these things work. But I'm essentially saying, yes, of course not, and that kind of tempered my enthusiasm to be around her. But at the same time, I can't escape what's in front of me. And the next day, we are going to go do constitutional law together, and I sit down in front of her. She can't see what's on my laptop. She's across the table from me, and I open it up and I go to Drudge, and what do I see immediately? I see French Catholic priest beheaded in Normandy by Muslim extremist. And that was the final sort of blow to any feeling of, well, what if could we theoretically move past this? Could I put aside my racial identity? Could I put aside my my God, essentially, to be with her, even if it made me happy? And I had to come to the conclusion, no. And maybe for some people they would say, maybe you'd say, no, you should. If you found a person that is a match for you, why shouldn't you pursue that? And I just started thinking very seriously right there. It's like, no, but that's betraying who I am and what I want for my own life. And it was very sad, and I blame multiculturalism for this, because if it wasn't for the policies of multiculturalism, I never would have met her. And this is not the bemoaning of some beta cuck saying, "Oh, woe is me, I like a girl, but I shouldn't ask her out because I'm a coward." No, this is serious, because if it wasn't for multiculturalism, the woman I would be around would be my own kind. If it wasn't for multiculturalism, the guys that she would be around would be her own kind. And I've spoken to her a little bit about politics, and one of the things that really astounded me was she's not an immigrant. She was born here, but she holds real value in her cultural roots, which is Pakistan. And so I asked her real quick, who are your people? And I was getting at, are you Pakistani, or are you American? And she said, I don't know. And that's deeply troubling. Yeah, we could get into, when does a group of immigrants, when do they assimilate? Is assimilation possible? Well, assimilation must be possible, at the very least for white people, because my parents are both white. My parents come from immigrant stocks from Italy, Austria, Wales, and Scotland, all over the place. My grandparents, some of my grandparents were immigrants, some were not, some were from before then. But sooner or later, a white person who is constantly surrounded by white people, you're all speaking the same language, you're all doing all these things. You're American. I mean, I would never consider, even though I may come from Italian stock or Austrian stock or Welsh stock, I've been to Italy. I've never been to Austria. I'd like to go there and see some of the churches. But when I traveled across Italy, I didn't like it. I mean that sounds like heresy, and it is. But I thought the food was mediocre. I didn't like the people. I immediately saw these are, and it's not just because they're speaking Italian and I'm speaking English. It's I have very little in common with these people besides the fact that gene pool, they're part of my ancestry. And I take pride in that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I acknowledge them as stock that I come from, but it's just not. I didn't see a commonality with them besides we both have white skin, and we're both ostensibly Catholic. And there's a lot of beautiful churches in Italy, obviously. But it just goes to show the dangers of multiculturalism. I mean, I hate that I have to shroud my politics. I hate that I am forced to be around people that are not me. And it pushes, it puts pressure, and it damages the relationships. And she's seeing actually another white guy. And it's funny because I've spoken to this gentleman about what he views about himself. And the guy that she's seeing is a white guy who believes in white guilt, who is feminist. Just religion doesn't mean anything to him. He doesn't, I don't know. We haven't spoken much about the topics, but you can sense these things in people, by how they live their lives, by what they say, how they conduct themselves, obviously. Yeah, a person actually does wear their politics on their sleeve. You just have to know what to look for. And when I looked at them, I said, okay, they're actually more of a match than she and I, because her Islamic faith means something to her. This is a man with no to little faith. He will acquiesce to her. Uh, this is a woman who believes in gender roles. This man is willing to fold to that whim. Uh, he can perform the progressive relativistic dance to her and match her in her strength as a foreigner, if that makes sense. I'm getting weird, but I'm putting together images in my head as I speak. And I can't do that. I can't do that as a guy that takes his religion very seriously, as a guy that takes his white identity seriously. Um, and I've come to despise what this has done to us. What this multiculturalism, I feel like multiculturalism it's in a way it's forcing me to be weak. It's just I want to stay away from terms like miscegenation and all those things. Although to some degree it is true. It is a weakening, but it's a weakening of our culture and of our values and of our own social trust, our own community. And meanwhile, the people that are not Western feel like they have community. So what's wrong then with me as a white Catholic wanting that for myself? Why should that be frowned upon? And it goes back to, if Black lives matter, that's fine. So do white lives then. So have courage when you speak about that. So can love conquer all? No, no, it simply cannot. That's not to say that love is just a biological chemical reaction similar to eating, 10 chocolate bars or whatever. That's not true. But love and masculinity and femininity, these are all real things that dance together. And what the progressive mindset wants is to break the dance, um, and to break the cultural values, to break that community apart. Uh, and if you look at the education of many of the people at my law school that are not white, they don't know anything. I mean, yes, maybe they're quite competent at the law. I know for myself, my grades need to improve. But if you ask them about history, culture, who they are, their people, they don't know. They get what culture and what history they get from their own local communities, I guess, which are non-white. They don't know about the American Revolution. They don't know about the colonists. They don't know about religious persecution. They don't know about any of that. And it's funny when you start reading the basics of common law. Common law is where it's sort of the basis of Anglo-Saxon law. It's just the historical trend of culture, the building up of precedent and all that. They don't understand where it comes from. They can't identify with that. I can. I can look and say, okay, well, what's American law based off of? Based off of English law. What's English law based off of? It's based off Roman law. Easy. Done. And yet they can't feel it. They don't know that. And how sad is that? That assimilation, it can't happen. Well, it can happen, but there are elements to it that I don't know. That's a bigger topic than I can delve into. When does it happen or not? I don't know. But it's a shame what the left has done to us. It's a shame that the left has destroyed our relationships, destroyed our families, and is destroying the bonds that can even bring us together. Because I remember in the 90s, we were all taught that everybody was colorblind. Race doesn't matter. All these things don't matter. And in the 90s, I feel like we could say that a little bit more because everybody was still relatively white, at least everybody that I knew. In fact, those were the days when it was novel to have a black friend. It was novel to know somebody who was a minority. But it's not that way anymore. The 90s was 26 years ago now. That's 2 generations. And my, how things have changed. So I would caution you, if you are considering a relationship with people that are not your race, that are not your faith. Can it work? I presume it can work. But the cost is high. The cost is going to be your social trust, I think. Because remember, when you get involved with people, you're not just getting involved with this circle of friends or this woman or this man or whoever you're with. You're getting involved with all their baggage, with all their stuff as well. So be careful what you go looking for in relationships. And stick by what you know in the end, what you trust. Stick by your gut, that feeling you get when you're around people. It very rarely leads you astray. And so with that, thanks for coming out, everybody. Talk to you guys later. See you around.